When it comes to 5G, you must first think of Huawei. But in fact, Apple is developing 5G baseband chips. The baseband chip is the communication module in the mobile phone. The main function is to communicate with the base station of the mobile communication network. In short, 5G baseband chip is the key to enabling a mobile phone to use the 5G network. As the world's #1 mobile phone company, after the development of the 5G network, Apple will naturally develop 5G baseband chips to enable its products to use the 5G network. In 2022, Apple's 5G chips are mainly provided by Qualcomm. If Apple fails to develop 5G chips independently, Qualcomm will continue to be the exclusive supplier of 5G chips for the new iPhone in 2023, with a supply share of 100%. But as we all know, Apple and Qualcomm once had patent wars. In 2017, Qualcomm sued Apple in federal court in San Diego, alleging that Apple's iPhones, iPads and Apple Watches infringed on several of Qualcomm's mobile technology patents. Apple is also reluctant to continue to provide 5G chips from Qualcomm. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. And I hope it will touch your heart and stimulate your thought. Apple's M-series chips have made breakthroughs. Why did 5G chips fail? What impact will Apple's self-development failure have? Why could Huawei successfully develop 5G chips? Not long ago, Apple's 5G chip development failure was on the hot search in Chinese social software, and many people participated in the discussion. In addition to complaining about the poor signal of Apple's mobile phone, everyone is also amazed at the ability of Huawei's 5G baseband. Many netizens said, Apple's signal is really garbage. This technology is a long-term accumulation process, and it is not just developed with money. I have to say, Huawei is really great. At present, the core technology of 5G chips in the world is mainly controlled by three companies: Qualcomm in the United States, Samsung in South Korea and Huawei in China. Around 2020, due to the patent fee dispute with Qualcomm, the progress of procurement between Apple and the Qualcomm on 5G baseband chips has been slow. Apple's demand for 5G baseband procurement from Samsung also cannot be effectively advanced due to the limited supply of Samsung's production capacity. At that time, Apple even reported that it was considering using Huawei's 5G baseband, and Apple was once badly regarded as will be left behind in the 5G era. In order to deal with the problem of 5G baseband supply, Apple tried to cooperate with Intel to purchase 5G chips and basebands, but after using the 5G baseband developed by Intel, its products did not perform well. In the end, Apple could only turn around and choose to reconcile with Qualcomm and pay royalties. During the period, Apple also invested $1 billion to acquire most of Intel's mobile phone baseband, modem, business, and merged about 2,200 Intel's employees into Apple, opening the road to self-developed 5G baseband. It's just a pity that now, with the news of Apple's self-developed 5G chip failure, Apple will continue to pay high procurement fees to Qualcomm. Apple's M-series chips have made many breakthroughs, so why did 5G chips fail? At present, it seems that Apple's self-developed 5G chip has indeed failed. However, according to industry insiders, Apple will not give up the research and development of 5G chips because of this failure. It may take more time to complete related technical research and other work, and then mass-produce it after testing perfectly and commercialize it in the iPhone. The 5G baseband chip not only has very complex algorithms, but also has strict requirements in terms of radio frequency, computing power, and energy efficiency. In addition, it must adapt to the frequency bands of various countries around the world. 4G and 3G GSM and other standards, which have led to great challenges in the development of 5G baseband, far exceeding the difficulty of developing ordinary chips. It can be said that the baseband chip is not one chip, but several chips, which greatly increases the difficulty of research and development. The M2 is actually a simple processor. As long as the power consumption and computing power are balanced, its difficulty cannot be compared with that of the 5G baseband chip. So why did Huawei successfully develop 5G chips? One of the biggest reasons is that Huawei has foresight. Huawei started 5G technology research and development as early as 2016. In 2018, Huawei released the first 3GPP standard 5G commercial chip. It can be seen that Huawei's research and development of 5G chips started very early. As mentioned earlier in the video, 5G chips require a process of accumulation, and it is because of Huawei's strong technical accumulation that 5G chips can be successfully developed. What are the consequences of Apple's failure to independently develop 5G chips? Although the progress of self-developed chips is hindered, Apple will continue to develop its own 5G chips, which may take 2 to 3 years. But by the time Apple is successful and can replace Qualcomm in the iPhone, Qualcomm's other new businesses should have grown enough to offset the loss of iPhone 5G chip orders. After Apple's self-developed 5G chip failed, the biggest beneficiary was Qualcomm. With Apple failing to replace Qualcomm, Qualcomm's revenue and earnings per share in the second half of 2023 to the first half of 2024 could beat consensus estimates. An interesting thing is that on June 27, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected Apple's patent appeal against Qualcomm, and did not support Apple's lawsuit against Qualcomm on 2 smartphone patents. These 2 patents are 2 of the tens of thousands of Qualcomm patent licenses that Apple reached a settlement in 2019 when it sought to obtain Qualcomm supply chips. Apple has been working to get rid of Qualcomm for many years, and the 2 sides have engaged in protracted legal battles in many countries around the world over patent issues. The most direct result of the failure that it has to use chips from its old rival. So what's the solution? It's clear that both Apple and Qualcomm are actively looking for alternative markets. Qualcomm, the baseband chip giant, is also actively responding to the decline in Apple's orders in the future. In November last year, Qualcomm Chief Financial Officer Akash Palkhiwala said that Qualcomm expects to supply only 20% of Apple's baseband chips in 2023. Therefore, Qualcomm is actively seeking greater market share in other markets. In the context of the slowdown in the growth of the entire mobile phone industry, Qualcomm's mobile phone business in the first quarter increased by 56% year-on-year to $6.33 billion. Despite the sluggish demand for consumer electronics in recent years, Apple's performance in the first quarter of this year is still outstanding. Its total revenue in the first quarter of this year was $97.3 billion, an increase of 8.6% year-on-year, higher than the market's forecast of $93.9 billion. There are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends, only permanent interests. When Apple fails to develop its own 5G chip, it will still reach a cooperation with Qualcomm, although there are many disputes between the 2 sides. Qualcomm will naturally not give up the big market of Apple. Okay, we just spent another 10 minutes of deep thinking. Do you want to know what changes have taken place in the world in these 10 minutes? Please keep following our channel and like our videos.